The rain started around 4, and by 5:30, there were 2 suitcases and a cardboard box standing in it on the gravel drive of the Sonoda house in Ashia, and a 5-year-old girl sitting on the box in a yellow raincoat, asking her mother when Daddy was coming home. Wanjiru Sonoda was 33 years old. She had been in Japan for 11 of those years and married for 7. And she had been a widow for 49 days exactly, which was the entire point of the timing, though it took her a while to understand that. 49 days. In this country, that is the day the soul finishes its crossing. That morning she had knelt at the memorial in a black dress she had borrowed, with incense in her hand and her daughter's fingers in her other one, and her mother-in-law had wept beautifully in front of 40 guests and held Wanjiru's shoulder and said, "Loud enough for the room. We are all family here." By 4 in the afternoon the guests were gone, the caterers were gone, and there were 3 men in the hallway carrying her things out through the front door. "You cannot do this," she had said. She remembered saying it very calmly. "This is my house." "It is the Sonoda house," Kaneko Sonoda had said. "It has been the Sonoda house for 90 years. You are not a Sonoda. You have my son's surname on a piece of paper, which is a different matter entirely." Masashi, the brother-in-law, had a folder. He was always going to have a folder. He put it on the hall table and opened it and turned it around with 2 fingers, the way you show a menu to someone who cannot read it. "Haruki transferred the property to Mother in November," he said, "before he became too unwell to make decisions. It is all in order. Registered, sealed, witnessed. November. In November her husband had weighed 51 kilograms and had needed help to sit up, and she had been sleeping in a chair beside a hospital bed for 6 weeks. And she knew. She knew the way you know your own hands, that Haruki Sonoda had not sat down in November and signed his wife and his daughter out of the only home they had. But she was a foreign woman with a document in front of her and a lawyer's seal on it, and she had 3,000 yen in her purse, and her daughter was standing at the end of the hallway holding a stuffed rabbit and watching 2 strangers carry her bed out of her room. "Where am I supposed to go?" she said. "That is really not our concern," her mother-in-law said. "I have booked you a hotel for 2 nights. After that, I suggest you make some arrangements. And Hana stays." That was the moment the floor came up. "What?" "The child is a Sonoda," Kaneko said. "The child stays in her family home. You may visit. We are not monsters, Wanjiru. But you have no house, no work, no money, and no standing, and I have already spoken with people about the paperwork, and I would advise you very strongly not to embarrass yourself by fighting something you cannot win." They put her out at 5:15 with 2 suitcases, a box, and, because Hana screamed until a neighbor opened a window, the child. She stood on the drive in the rain. Now, this is the part where I have to take you back 7 years. Because otherwise the rest of it will sound like something out of a film, and it was not. It was just a Tuesday, once, a long time ago. Wanjiru had come to Japan at 22 on a study visa, run out of money in the 2nd year, and worked nights at a bakery distribution center outside Kobe, loading trays from 11 until 7. She walked home at dawn past the back of a convenience store on a road with nothing on it, and one morning in October there was a man behind that store, sitting against the wall in a suit, with his hand pressed to his side and a great deal of blood on the concrete. He was maybe 50. He looked at her and said nothing at all, did not ask, did not beg, and she understood immediately. From the suit and the way he was not calling anyone, exactly what kind of situation she had walked into. She should have kept walking. Everyone she has ever told this story to has said the same thing. Instead, she knelt down in the blood in her work trousers, took off her scarf, folded it into a pad, and pushed it against the hole in him hard enough that he made a sound. She asked him if he wanted an ambulance. He said no. She asked him if there was somebody she could call, and he said a name and a number, and she called it from her cheap phone, and then she sat there in the cold with her whole weight on that scarf for 19 minutes until a black car came. 2 men got out. They were not gentle with her at first. The old man said 3 words, and they stopped. They put him in the car. He was gray by then. He looked at her through the open door and said, "Your name. It doesn't matter. It does to me." So she told him. And he told one of the men to give her money, a lot of it, more than she made in a season, and she looked at it and said no. Why not? Because then it was a job, she said. It wasn't a job. It was just a person. He was quiet for a moment. Then he asked for something to write on, and the younger man produced a card, and the old man wrote a number on the back of it in shaking handwriting and held it out. One day he said, "You will need something." One text. Anything. It does not expire. She took the card so that he would stop bleeding on the seat and let the door close. She put it in a book, a paperback she had been reading, page 90-something, and she carried that book to 4 apartments over 7 years and never used it. Not when she was refused a lease 3 times in a month. Not when a landlord's agent said the thing he said to her at the door. Not when the medical bills came. Not in November when Haruki was 51 kilograms and she was sitting in the hospital corridor at 2 in the morning doing arithmetic that did not work. She never used it. Because she had meant what she said in that alley. And because she knew, she was not a naive woman, exactly what kind of debt it was, and exactly who would be holding the other end of it. She was standing in the rain in Ashiya at 20 to 6 with her daughter on a cardboard box. She did not reach for the card first. She wants people to know that. She called Emiko, the only real friend she had in that town, and Emiko cried and said her husband would not allow it, and hung up, and Wanjiru has never held that against her because she knew exactly what the Sonoda name was worth in Ashiya. She called the City Hall consultation line and got a recorded message with the opening hours. She called a legal advice number for foreign residents that she had saved 4 years earlier and got a very kind young man who told her that these matters take months, that she should not sign anything, and that she should try to find somewhere to sleep tonight. Then she called her mother in Nakuru and heard herself say that everything was fine, and listened to her mother talk about the rains for 6 minutes, and hung up. Hana said she was cold. The men had finished with the truck and were standing under the eaves smoking and not looking at her, and up at the first-floor window there was a shape behind the curtain that did not move. She got the book out of the suitcase. The card was still on page 90-something, soft at the corners. She typed with wet thumbs, and what she sent was this: "My name is Wanjiru. 7 years ago, behind a convenience store in Kobe. I need help." Then she sat down on the box next to her daughter and put her arms around her and waited, and did not really expect anything at all, because 7 years is a long time and men like that die. The reply came in 90 seconds. "Do not move from that spot." The cars came at 11 minutes past 6. 3 of them, black, coming up the hill in the rain and stopping in the road outside the gate, without hurry. She had thought about this moment 100 times over 7 years in the abstract, and it never once looked like what it actually was, which was a very old man in a raincoat getting out of the middle car with a walking stick, and stopping in the road, and looking at a woman and a child sitting on a cardboard box in the rain. Shiro Genda was 58 then. He is older now. He had run the Gendakai in that part of Kensai for 19 years, and there were men in 3 prefectures who went gray at his name, and he stood in the road for a long moment, and did not say anything. Then he crossed the drive and took the umbrella from the man beside him and held it, himself personally with his own hand, over a 5-year-old girl in a yellow raincoat. "Hello," he said to Hana. "You are getting wet." "My bed is in the truck," Hana said. "Yes," he said. "I see it." He straightened up, and he looked at the house, and his face did something that made 2 of his own men look at the ground. "Wanjiru-san," he said, "tell me all of it." She told him, standing there in the rain, in about 90 seconds, because there was not much to tell: the memorial, the folder, the November transfer, the hotel booked for 2 nights. The child is a Sonoda. Genda listened. Then he said the thing that took her legs out from under her. "He came to see me in November," he said. She stared at him. "Your husband." The old man's voice was very level. "He was carried up my steps by 2 of my people, because he could not manage them people, because he could not manage them himself, and he sat in my room for 40 minutes. And he was in a great deal of pain, and he refused anything for it, because he wanted to be clear when he spoke to me." "Haruki didn't know he found the card," Genda said. "In a book, in a box, 4 years ago. He asked you nothing about it. He wrote the number down and he kept it, and then when the diagnosis came he made some inquiries about whose number it was, which was not difficult. And in November he came to my house." He paused. He said, "My mother will move on my wife before I am cold. She has already spoken to a lawyer. My wife will not fight, because she does not believe this country will take her side, and she is not entirely wrong about that." He said, "I have no one else to ask." The rain came off the roof of the gate. "He left something with me," Genda said. "I have had it in my safe for 8 months and I could not do anything with it, because there is one thing your husband made me promise." He said, "Do not go to her." He said, "She will not use that card for herself, she never has. She has too much pride and she does not want anything from men like us. But if she is ever truly at the end of it, she will use it for the child." He said, "Wait for the text. If it comes, you will know it is bad enough." Wanjiru Sonoda stood on a gravel drive in the rain and heard her husband's voice for the first time in 49 days, coming out of the mouth of a criminal, and she put her hand over her face. "He was very sure of you," Genda said. "He was right, in the end. It took 8 months and it took them putting a child in the rain, but he was right." He turned to the car. "Ito, the envelope." What was in the envelope was this: a will, properly notarized on the 11th of November at a firm in Osaka with no connection whatsoever to the Sonoda family, leaving the house and everything in it to his wife and daughter, a medical certificate of capacity signed the same day, a full copy of the property register as of that date, and a letter in Haruki's handwriting, sealed, addressed to her, which she did not open for 3 weeks, and which is nobody's business but hers. The document Masashi had in his folder was dated the 26th of November. On the 26th of November, Haruki Sonoda had been in a hospital in Kobe under sedation, with a nurse's signature on a chart every 2 hours. And there were 11 witnesses and a monitoring record to prove it. Genda did not go into the house. That is the part people never believe. He never went past the gate. He sent one man to the door with a business card belonging to a lawyer in Osaka, and a sentence: "Everything after this happens in an office, in daylight, with paper." But he did stand in the road for a few minutes afterward, talking quietly with the man who had brought the envelope, and what he said was not a threat. It was an observation, and the observation was that Sonoda Construction had 2 bridge subcontracts and a landfill permit in a part of the prefecture where a great many small arrangements had to hold steady, and that a family which forges a dying man's seal in November is a family whose paperwork ought to be looked at properly, by everyone all at once. That was all. He said it to his own man, in the rain, in a normal voice, on a public road. It was enough. The whole thing was finished in 14 weeks. The transfer was voided. 2 people were charged with forgery, and one of them was Masashi Sonoda, and he did not go to prison, but he lost his license, and the company lost the bridge subcontracts. And Kaneko Sonoda moved to her sister's house in Nara, and no longer receives the sort of invitations she used to receive. Wanjiru got the house. She sold it 8 months later, because a house is only a house and that one had never once been kind to her, and she bought a much smaller place in Kobe with a bakery on the ground floor that she had walked past at dawn 1,000 times in a previous life, and she took it over, and she runs it now. She named it Haruki. It is not subtle. She does not care. The old man comes on Saturdays. He orders the same thing, sits at the table by the window, and argues with Hana about arithmetic. She is 12 now, and beats him regularly, and he pretends to be furious. Twice a year, Wanjiru tries to refuse his money, and twice a year he puts it under the plate anyway, and it has become a routine that both of them enjoy more than either will admit. He has never once asked her for anything, not a favor, not a name, not a corner of that shop for anything at all. She asked him about it, once, directly, because she is not a woman who leaves things unsaid. He said, "You knelt down in the blood of a man you had every reason to walk past, and you would not take money for it. If I ever put my business in your hands, that would stop being true, and it is one of the very few true things I have left." People love the part where the cars come up the hill. That is the part that gets retold. The 3 black cars. The old man with the stick. The umbrella held over a little girl in a yellow raincoat, while everything her mother owned sat in the rain. But Wanjiru will tell you the story is not really about that. It is about a dying man in November who could not walk up a flight of steps, who spent one of his last clear afternoons making sure that 8 months later, on the worst day of his wife's life, there would be one number in a paperback book that still answered. She sent 5 sentences. He had been waiting the whole time.